So you have been shopping for a Zola Patrol VF19P, but the only option has been the Yamato 160 scale released in December 2012 for 22,000 yen. Since that toy has never been reissued, it now demands a steep premium. In September 2025, Bandai released the Tamashii Web exclusive High Metal R for only 15,000 yen, and you were left to wonder, should I get that one instead? Well, buckle up, cause you're about to find out. Bandai shipped their toy in a box of thicker cardboard and better art, but neither box is remarkable. You're not gonna find a flip-top lid or windows showing off the goods. Kudos are in order for both of these companies because both strive to capture the details that make the 19P unique from its sibling, the VF19 Kai. As you can see, both companies incorporated the extra thrusters on the nose, the speaker fins on the shoulders, the VF1 style fins on the legs, missile ports on the side of the legs, and obviously that unique head sculpt. If you care about a complete assortment of VF19 toys, then Yamato has a big head start, having released 4 variants, with Arcadia adding a recolor of that Fire Valkyrie. Bandai's High Metal R line is young, so someday it might equal or beat the Yamato, but for now, as of the time I'm making this video, only the 2 releases. Lots of Macross fans are heavily invested in 160 scale figures, so the High Metal R simply doesn't qualify. You want a toy to put next to your Yamatos, your Frontier, Delta, Macross Plus, DX toys, and for that you need something that stands about 26 centimeters tall in a VF19 or 31 centimeters long in fighter mode. As you would expect, the Yamato is close enough, the High Metal R not so much. That said, the High Metal R universe is also large and diverse, with toys for Macross 0, Macross 7, even Macross 2. The High Metal R line is technically non-scale, but aims to be about 1/100 scale. A true 1/100 would have Fighter be about 18.5 centimeters long, and Battroid would be 15.5 centimeters tall. The High Metal R is just kind of close enough. If you're someone who puts a lot of value on heft, then the Yamato is the right toy for you. It's about 1/3 larger than the High Metal R, but weighs nearly 4 times as much. Yamato put metal in the joints and gave us a metal spine that's nice and heavy. The High Metal R has metal in the joints, but you'll never know it from picking the toy up. While the lack of heft might seem like a big negative, there is one area where it is a positive, and that is the display stand. The High Metal R comes with a Tamashii Stage Act display stand with adapters for every mode. It's got some nice embellishment on the base, and it's going to add a lot of fun factor to how you pose this toy. In contrast, the Yamato 160 comes with 2 adapters, one for Fighter or Gerwalk, a second for Battroid mode, but they work with a sold separately Yamato launch arm or any of the later released Arcadia display stands. Though there is line art that shows the VF19P in Gerwalk mode with a speaker pod launcher, both of these toys come with a GU-15 gun pod. That would be something you would see on a 19S or a 19F. You could see the Bandai one has some white accent to the side, but otherwise the same red up front and yellow in the back paint applications. Now this is the Yamato gun pod that comes with the 19S and F. It is a little grayer in color, I'll show you in just a moment, but what I wanted to show was that these guns have the ability to recess this section here, so it's a little bit more level on fighter mode, but I also wanted to show you that even with that, it is angled a little downward. You can see that nose is pointed up, but that gun is pretty much straight here. And now if I flip this toy over, you can see we have the gray gun versus the lighter gray gun. So that's what Yamato did a little differently for their 19P. Now, both of these toys install the gun in fighter mode in exactly the same way. You just pop the shield off and slot in that grip.
Both toys come with unique pilot figures from the VF-19 Kai, and both are very nicely detailed, though the High Metal R pilot obviously much smaller, so a little bit more difficult to appreciate those details. Both pilots sit nicely into their cockpits, and then on the High Metal R we have a separate piece that we plug in. It is very smoky gray, so once it's on there, it's very difficult to see the pilot. The Yamato 160, a much more premium affair. We have this canopy with the hinge, and that hinge slides closed. Feels a lot nicer. The landing gear doors are very similar in both toys. They feature a sliding hinge, which kind of conceals the mechanism, and a 3-door bay in the front, which is a little tricky to get your fingernail in there, but there you go. Now on the High Metal R, less premium, we have these separate landing gear parts. There are no rubber tires, there's nothing that spins, there's no articulated tow bar. You have to go to your parts bin, grab these landing gear, and just plug them in like so. They do angle outward a little bit in the back. Obviously not a very premium experience. In contrast, the Yamato has those same bay doors with the sliding hinges, which are nice. And then once that's open, you'll notice there's a painted interior to the bay, which is sort of this light blue-green color. And the gear themselves are painted dark gray, which is exactly what we see in the show. And we have rubber tires on there that spin. In the front, same 3-door bay with an articulated tow bar and tires that spin again. So definitely a much more premium experience on the Yamato. Both toys come with neck cavity fillers, and they do clean up the look, but both toys also have a neck with the right shape. So if you are a perfect transformation nut, you can easily pass on this part, although as you can see, it is a nice upgrade. If you insist on perfect transformation, this is how the shield will look on the arm of your toy in Battroid or Gerwalk mode. Both of these toys come with an optional Battroid specific shield that tabs in more into the center of the shield and tapers off more towards the front. So that is the Battroid specific shield that you'll find with both releases. The Yamato toy comes with perfect transformation articulated hands that you can see here. They open, they grab the gun. They're not terribly dynamic. It would have been nice if Yamato had included some fixed pose options, but they do a pretty decent job. The High Metal R has perfect transformation hands that are really just tiny little stubs. They cannot do anything, they cannot hold the gun. If you want to get into any of that stuff, you get a bunch of different fixed posed hands. We have sort of a grasping hand, we have a open kind of relaxed looking hand, and then we have a fist, and of course there is a gun gripping hand as well. But all of these hands introduce a problem, and that problem is that they are very large on the toy. So here we see our original hand. Here is the fixed posed hand. You can see the fixed posed hand much larger. And when you put it on the toy and then put the arm alongside the toy, you get this really simian look to it. Like the arms are just too long. And on the other side, we still have that original hand. And you can see it's not as bad. It still might be a little bit off, but not the same factor. Nice that we get the fixed posed hands, but it does introduce that issue. The Yamato toy also includes back of the leg cavity fillers. Here you can see I've got it installed on one side, not on the other. It installs very simply, just one peg that goes in, but it's a very stiff fit as that peg goes in, and you won't have to worry about it popping out. It's a nice touch, but it's something I would probably never use. From a handling perspective, I am thrilled to say that both of these toys hold together incredibly well in fighter mode. This almost feels like one solid piece of plastic. You can whoosh it around and have yourself a grand old time because nothing's gonna pop off. It's very, very solid. Yamato, same thing. The only little caveat here on the Yamato, these pieces right here, if you put your fingers on them, they do move a little bit more freely than they do on the High Metal R. But on the Yamato, we have this Heft. This is a very heavy toy, which is also very solid. So it's a lot more pleasing to handle in that regard. Also with that size, a lot easier to handle. And again, it just feels rock solid. So you can swoosh this thing around your room and you're gonna have a great time. Now, while we're looking at these, there is some weirdness with the stripes. Yamato gave us sort of a similar thickness throughout. It jumps over. That's pretty common from the line art, comes out to the wing. I really like how Yamato handled the stripes. Now, the Bandai High Metal R, on the other hand, has a lot of tapering going on. So it starts real thin here, gets thicker, then comes back out and gets thin again. And it's thicker here. It's also like almost a little bit wavy through this section. It's not quite as crisp looking. It's not terrible to the eye, but I do prefer what Yamato did there. Do check out my separate transformation guide to appreciate how much of the design is similar between these two toys. But one thing that is not similar on the High Metal R is that it has this separate shoulder cover for Gerwalk mode. And before we install this, I do want to show you that interior detail, same as the VF19 Kai, but without the paint applications on the speaker, because there is no part on this toy to give you the elevated speaker exposed look, because that was never seen in the anime, so there's no real knowing that the VF19P has that. Anyways, we put that part on like so. Now we are in Gerwalk mode, whereas on the Yamato, we just take the fin on top and give it a little twist. There are 4 critical durability issues you gotta check out before buying a secondhand Yamato VF19, and we start with this Gerwalk joint. This is as far forward as the Gerwalk joint can go on the Yamato, and it's a very stiff joint to engage. So make sure you twist the leg as you bring this leg down and forward so that you reduce the tension on that joint and don't risk breaking off the plastic tabs that hold the upper leg onto this gray part here. And if you're buying one secondhand, you want to make sure that that joint isn't broken. On contrast, that has been updated on the High Metal R. It's a little bit different, and I actually have one that is not working properly on this side. So similar in how far that joint sweeps forward, and it will stop. But the way it works on the High Metal R is that this little sleeve internally, that gray part, is just glued with a touch of glue onto that peg right there. And so if it does break, it's actually easily repaired. Whereas on the Yamato, you're gonna have broken tabs and much more difficult, if at all possible, repair. The next durability issue you need to be aware of on the Yamato are the ankles, which have a nice design. They pivot outward and inward, they twist around, all that's very good. Metal on metal, but if you tilt the ankle backwards, it seems to permanently loosen up the joint. And as you can see, there is no way to get in here and tighten things back up. So then you have a permanently sloppy ankle, and it's a lot of difficult times when you get to Gerwalk mode and you want this thing to stand up. So what I highly recommend is that you do go out and get yourself a sold separately display stand and use that if Gerwalk mode is your jam and you really want to display your Yamato in that position. Oddly enough, the High Metal R design looks basically the exact same except for a plastic housing at the bottom. Same benefits. Very easy to twist, pivot, up, down, and absolutely no problem with getting loose. They are a joy to handle, at least so far. Granted, this toy is fairly new, but it seems like if Gerwalk mode is your jam, you will have more fun with it in the High Metal R version because you don't have to worry so much about those ankles unless you've already committed to using a display stand. The third durability issue on the Yamato is within this bicep sleeve here, which I've pulled down to make the bicep look a little chunkier, which is something both toys can do. If we pull this up,
you will see this joint right here. And on several Yamatos I've seen, there is a crack emanating either from the pin or just below the pin right here. And then that makes this elbow joint very sloppy. So right now this is nice and stiff, comes up, gets you that full 180 degrees angle, true on both toys. But if that crack appears, you're gonna have a sloppy arm. So check that out if you're buying one secondhand. The final durability issue that really jumps out at me on these Yamatos that you definitely want to check before making a purchase is the swivel within the shoulder. So everything's functioning just fine on this side. On this side, I get a little bit more resistance as I go to rotate this shoulder. And so you don't want to rotate it once you start feeling resistance. That peg internally is plastic and has broken on a lot of people. Once it does, your toy is relegated to fighter mode forever. I don't see any way to fix that. So definitely check that the shoulders are still connected if you're about to plop down a lot of money and buy one of these secondhand. So do you absolutely need to have a display stand for the Yamato? No, but it helps a lot. You can see I'm doing some very weird things with the feet here to get the toe pinched downward so I don't have to rock the heels all the way backward. And that's allowing me to get a fairly stable Gerwalk pose here. But it's not nearly the fun or playable figure that we have with the High Metal R. The High Metal R here is very easily adjusted on those feet. You can have a lot of fun posing it. It's gonna handle great. It's basically the same design. So everything is locked together very well through the chest. It feels rock solid, as does the Yamato, but this gives us ankles that actually cooperate and get us where we need to be. The only thing that frustrates me on both toys is these wings very easily knocked. There's no little detent that gets them into a position that holds, but obviously a very minor nit to an overall excellent Gerwalk mode. And High Metal R finally delivering on the promise of the Yamato design by incorporating ankles that can field it. Neither of these toys retain the VF19 Kai's integrated shoulder speakers. On the High Metal R version of the 19 Kai, there's a separate part you swap in. On the Yamato, that was integrated, but the 19P has the speakers on the fins on top, so they're not there. Curiously, on the Yamato, they retained the internal missile bays in the leg here on the outside of the leg, so we can rotate these missiles, and it's a cool little feature. They have to slide out a little bit. It's not the easiest thing to do, just like it isn't on the VF19 Kai High Metal R. But Bandai did not include that missile bay on the 19P. Here, this is glued shut now. That is no longer an option. One of the truly over-the-top features of the Yamato is not recreated by the High Metal R, and that is this trapdoor here, which can open. And it can open on both toys this far. But on the Yamato, we also get a second trapdoor at the front of the cockpit that can open. And then that allows you to see Basara inside with his guitar controller, and he's in the proper vertical position. None of that is possible on the High Metal R, where the cockpit simply stays as it is, everything collapses over the top, and Basara right now would be pointing upward, but you can't see him in there, so I don't know how big a deal that is for you. One of the more curious elements of Dynamite 7 is that Basara gets covered with blood in his 19P and suddenly grows a 19 Kai face. One of the cool elements of the Yamato is they've put the 19 Kai face behind the gray visor. It's barely noticeable, but it's sort of a, I don't know, an homage or some inkling of how that was possible. On the High Metal R, we do get some sort of eye detail, but it's really hard to tell what's going on mechanically behind the green visor. It's still a very attractive face, but I think a little extra points to Yamato for trying to give us that hint of the 19 Kai. Aesthetically, these toys very similar. The High Metal R gets white bicep sleeves that I like. I thought that looked good. The Yamato has the truer yellow underneath the shoulders and sort of a brown yellow down at the bell bottoms.
I like the Yamato colors. I think they capture the essence of Macross 7 very well, but that's not to say there's anything wrong with the High Metal R, which is also a very attractive Battroid mode. From an articulation standpoint, these toys are virtually identical, though there is one limitation on the Yamato. This is as far as you can get for a wide stance, which is pretty dramatically wide. I would give it high points for that position. On the High Metal R though, we have the ability to continue going. Like there's really no stop to how far wide out that leg can go. So slightly better there, actually much better there, except how often are you getting your legs that far apart? But it will improve. The other thing that happens with the High Metal R is that the Gerwalk joints are smooth and buttery, where they are very difficult to engage on the Yamato. So as I handle this toy, the range of movement probably almost the same, but it feels a lot more comfortable when you're doing it with the High Metal R because the joints just move like they're supposed to. They don't have a lot of heft that is resisting them at any point. So it's really, you're just picking the toy up and playing with it. Whereas with the Yamato, you're making conscious decisions about how to pose it, and it's just a little bit trickier. You can do all of the poses, and these ankles do a whole lot of things. You can have a ton of fun with it. There's just got to be a little bit more thought involved as you handle it to get into those poses so that the toy doesn't fall over or because the joints require a little bit more effort. From a handling perspective, both these toys rock solid. You can pick them up from pretty much anywhere. They're going to hold together just fine. My only handling nit is the High Metal R's head spikes on the sides here. They can pop off very easily as you go to adjust which way the head is looking, but that's a very minor nit on a very otherwise solid toy. One last nit, the Yamato, the display stand adapter is very loose both in connection to the toy and the display stand, whereas the High Metal are rock solid in both. So really appreciate that this is an accessory that is included. I would say the High Metal R is our winner from an accessory standpoint. From a collectability standpoint, no question, the Yamato is the more sought after collectible. Sculpt, detail, paint, all those, I'm going with the Yamato on there. They had a bigger scale, they used it. It's a very attractive toy. From a design aspect, we've seen several elements that Yamato has done and they've taken advantage of their larger size, whereas there's had to be some concessions for price and scale on the High Metal R. When it comes to durability, no question, Yamato's got some big problems. The High Metal R has been very, very fun to handle. Same thing from an articulation standpoint, about the same. I showed you one little area where the High Metal R is superior. And again, those High Metal R joints, while they might have the same range of motion, a lot easier to handle. They just move buttery smooth, where with the Yamato, they're a little bit more effort involved. Overall, if you are looking for something fun to handle and scratches that 19p itch, then that's your High Metal R. If you want something for a display cabinet that's gonna look good, in any pose, because it is very well articulated. The Yamato still great for that, great for having the best of the best. Hopefully this has been a very informative video for you. Give it a thumbs up if it has been. If you've got anything you think I missed, do leave me a comment. Let me know what you're thinking, what other toys you think I should cover. If you're into transforming toys, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks everyone for watching.